Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Assessing and Addressing First Gen Student Challenges, a partner impact story with Georgia Institute of Technology. I will introduce my lovely co-host shortly. My name is Vanessa Ford, and I am a Senior University Relations Director with Mentor Collective. I use she, her pronouns, and I've been to Mentor Collective for a few years, and we'll share a little bit more in just a moment. Just some best practices as we move forward. Please make sure your audio is on mute. We love to have cameras on. We know that that's not ideal for everybody, but if you have your camera on, you can jump around, see which ones your colleagues are in the meeting as well. Also, adjust your video layout to speaker view. That way you don't need to see everybody all the time. And while you're just getting here, please chat your name and school and introduce yourself so we can see where folks are coming from around the country today. We had hundreds registered for this webinar, and we're super excited that you've decided to join us. So what are we going to dig into today? We're going to talk about the challenges of supporting first generation students, why mentorship is a solution and why mentorship at scale is a solution. We're going to dig into the Georgia Tech program design and results, and then have time hopefully at the end for some question and answers. If you put a question into the chat, my amazing colleague Jackie will actually text me that so I can make sure to see it, and I can share that with Dr. Troy, and we can answer your questions for you. A few other things. Please, again, submit your questions through us. Also, feel free to use emojis. We are all on video and camera view. If you hear something that you want to clap for, feel free to clap for it, heart it. Hopefully there won't be anything upsetting or thumbs down, but you never know in these conversations. So please engage with us as you are able. I see lots of folks in the chat as well. Wonderful to have you here. So it is my honor to introduce Dr. Charmaine Troy, first generation program and operations manager with Georgia Tech. I'm going to turn over the mic to Dr. Troy to introduce herself personally.
So good afternoon, everyone. You could have been anywhere else, but you are here with us. Thank you so much for attending this presentation. Like my esteemed colleague said, I am Dr. Charmaine Troy. I'm the first generation and limited income program and operations manager at Georgia Tech. I have been at Georgia Tech now for about 1.5 years. Prior to that, I started the first generation program at Virginia Tech, and I was assistant dean of first generation student success there. And prior to that, I started the program at Georgia Gwinnett College, where I served in many different roles at GGC. So again, I'm very happy to be here and very happy to kick off this conversation.
Wonderful. It is such a pleasure to work with you, Dr. Troy. Again, everybody, I'm Vanessa Ford. I've been with Mentor Collective for 3 years. I come to the work as an educator. So direct service to students in K-12 and in higher education, really focus on equity and access for all students, regardless of where they live, where they come from, how they identify, or their zip code. So I'm super thrilled to be working with Dr. Troy on her program and for us to synthesize everything for you today. We're going to start off with some context setting a little bit. You know, mentorship is what we're here to talk about today with first generation students and assessing their challenges. Dr. Troy, what does mentorship mean to you? How has it played a role in your life?
Well, mentorship to me means access, and I talked about that in the article that I did with you all. So when we talk about access, I'm talking about someone that opens the doors for you, someone that gives you opportunities, someone who goes to bat for you, someone that shares their knowledge, their resources, and their connections with you. So for me in the past, mentorship for me, I learned all about mentorship when I was an undergrad, first generation at UNC Chapel Hill. Shout out to Chapel Hill, my Tar Heels, if anyone's in here from UNC. But I first was introduced to mentorship through Miss Pamela Cheek, who was my mentor at UNC, and she introduced me to all the things that I just talked to you all. And what I make sure that I do in terms of my work and how I work with my first generation students based on my own experience and how Ms. Cheek imparted all her knowledge and connections and lessons to me. I make sure that I do that in the work that I do today. So that's why I do what I do.
Thank you so much. And of course, I wouldn't be at Mentor Collective if I didn't also believe really deeply in mentorship and the reality that mentorship creates relationships that help people thrive. And those relationships are so critical, especially when there are students who may not have the social capital or networks that other students have. So connecting them to a peer, especially in their first year at an institution like Georgia Tech, is really critical. And we're going to dig into what that looks like a little further. But before we dig into our program, I'm going to again turn over the mic to Dr. Troy to walk us through more about Georgia Tech in general. And Dr. Troy, just let me know when you're ready for the next slide.
Absolutely. Just to talk a little bit about Georgia Tech and who we are. Georgia Tech, of course, has been around for 135 plus years. We have around 44,000 students. That includes undergraduate and graduate students. We have 6 colleges, including our Georgia Tech Research Institute. We usually generate about $1 billion annually in research awards. Our students come from all around the world. So just globally, we are represented and it's very diverse. Have about over 400 student organizations and 60 plus chartered student organizations. Next slide. So some of our enrollment trends at Georgia Tech, as you can see on my left, you can see that our enrollment for first generation students has increased almost 79% since fall 2015. So we have been increasing and expanding our access to first generation students who attend Georgia Tech. We are actively seeking out first generation students and trying to recruit them. We'll talk about a little bit more about later about what we have done to do increased recruitment. And then also our first generation students are mostly in the College of Engineering. As you can see, 46.1% of our first gen students are in the College of Engineering, followed by the College of Computing with 21.8%. Next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we've had a 53% applicant increase in first generation students among first gen students from last year. So last year, our increase was 53%. So one of the things that we did last year when we did our admissions recruitment is number one, we did webinars for our first gen students that were in high school, just telling them about Georgia Tech and some of the first gen program that we had and the support that we have for first gen students when they enroll at Georgia Tech, and also talking to them more about the application process and educating them on that. But also in addition to that, which I'm very proud of, is that we waived the application fee for first generation students that were applying to Georgia Tech. We also plan to do that again this year. And as you can see on the right side here, we admitted 935 of those students that applied, and we had 7,742 first generation students apply to Georgia Tech, 935 admitted, 453 decided to attend this fall. So that's a 49.3% yield. Next slide, please.
And I'll just note that the source, that was a mistake on my end. That's actually to another slide. So we'll fix that before that heads on out. This is data from Georgia Tech.
Yeah. So our retention and graduation rate, with regard to our 1-year retention graduation rate for our first generation cohort, that is a 96.8%, which is a fantastic retention rate for 1 year. For our 6-year rate, for our first gen students in general, we're at 89.7% retention rate for our 6-year graduation rate, which is great, but it's still a little lower than our retention rate for our non-first generation students that sits at 92.1%. So we are looking to increase those numbers in that regard, but we're still very proud of the numbers that we have. Next slide, please. So one of the key things in our strategic plan that we have, and that's one of the things I wanted to focus on, I was recreating the mission and goals of first generation student programs, is one of our key pieces in our strategic plan is expanding access. And you heard me talk about access as far as mentorship. And so we make sure that our program and our programming elements align with the expanding access. So we're making sure that we expand service to increase engagement and support the students from low income families as well as underrepresented communities, which includes first generation students. Next slide, please. So some of our first generation signature programs, and I'm just gonna go one by one here on the list. So our First Gen Jack is peer mentoring program. We'll be talking about that today a little bit more. And this is our peer mentoring program for our first gen students. And I'll dive into those numbers a little bit more later on. We have a first generation college celebration week where we celebrate the first gen identity. It's surrounding the November 8th first generation college celebration day. So we just make it a week-long celebration. We have the First Generation College Institute, which was brand new over the summer. This is our program for our K through 12 space. So we did a institute both in Atlanta and Savannah, where we reached out to our 8th through 12th grade first generation students and brought them to our respective campuses in those areas. And we talked about preparing them for applying to college, what they should be doing while they're in high school to prepare for applying to college, and then the resources and things that they should be doing once they get into college. So we had about 100 students that attended along with their families at the Atlanta Institute as well as the Savannah Institute. And that was very well received. We have the Growing Up in Science conversation series where we focus on our first gen faculty and staff, where they talk about their journeys to becoming who they are now and some of the things that they went through as first generation students. We also have the GT First Ignite Summer Track that we did in partnership with TAS, which is for our incoming freshmen that are first generation. So we have that program as well. And I failed to mention that our First Generation College Institute is in partnership with Seismic, which is an amazing partner that focuses on K through 12 work in Atlanta. And then First Generation Recognition Ceremony, that's our ceremony where we celebrate our graduating first generation seniors and graduate students. And so I wanna say that all these programs, of course, could not come to fruition without the partnerships that we have and that we cultivate in our various departments at Georgia Tech. So huge thanks to all the people that partner with us. Next slide, please. Vanessa, you're on mute, by the way. There you are.
Ah, here I am. Okay, apologies for that. This is a question for all of you. We're going to launch a poll. When you think about supporting first generation students on your campus, what are the big areas that you're focusing on? Sense of belonging, retention, understanding student voice, or something else that you can chat out? Please answer this poll and I will share what the results say in just a few seconds. And it actually, interestingly, is not showing me the poll, Jackie. So we might need to see what the poll says on your end, if you could let me know.
I'll share the results, Vanessa, so you should be able to see, but time will tell.
Thank you.
Let me share.
Aha, here they are. So about 45% of you noted that sense of belonging is really critical to a challenge that you're facing. Retention, equally so. Understanding student voice. And then for others who put something in the chat, I will dig in and take a look at that as we move forward. Clearly, we're going to talk about sense of belonging and retention today as it relates to mentorship, as well as the student voice integrated into all of these pieces. Thank you so much. And we would be remiss if we didn't plug the fact that Dr. Troy, Dr. Jackson, Dr. Pierce, and Dr. Rowe have a book coming out specifically on supporting first generation students, September 26th. We're going to drop the link for this in the chat so that you have it. Dr. Troy, would you like to add anything about the process of creating this book, or what folks will find in this book?
Yes, so I just again want to shout out my amazing co-editors that you had already mentioned, as well as our fabulous contributors to the book, our chapter contributors. This was a 2-year process from start to finish on this book, and basically we are discussing how to develop and implement first generation programs. And in the book, we give examples of programs that are already in progress and doing great work on their respective campuses. So we're highlighting some of those so you can kind of get some ideas for your own campus that you can implement some of these programs that you see in the book. And again, September 26th, 2022 is when the book is coming out. It is available to pre-order on Amazon as well as Routledge right now. And Jackie has dropped the link in the chat if you're interested in purchasing or pre-ordering.
Thank you. As a fellow author, it is so exciting to see a book come to fruition, and I'm excited for September 26th. It's on my calendar. And yes, I've pre-ordered because I'm always learning. Seek learning is one of our big values at Mentor Collective. Wonderful. And just before we dive into mentorship at Georgia Tech, and before we actually hear from a student as part of the program, what made you and your team invest in mentorship and this partnership with Mentor Collective at Georgia Tech?
So actually the conversation was already in motion amongst my senior administrators before I arrived, which I very much appreciated because I come from a background of actually managing, implementing and managing these mentor programs on my own, these mentoring programs, and it is a lot of work. And so when I did speak with them about their conversations with Mentor Collective and what Mentor Collective offers in terms of its platform, I told them that it would certainly help streamline this process a whole lot more. And it has taken, I would have to say, a load off my back with having this platform in place and made things, like I said, more streamlined. So that was the reason to not only invest initially, but after the first year was over and assessing and being able to look at data, this is what made us, invest another year.
Thank you. And interestingly, we're going to listen to the student voice, but you just brought up, let me jump to here, and then I'm going to go back to her voice, the challenges of running a mentorship program on your own. If you could speak to these a little bit, we will then hear from a student who's part of it and then talk about our partnership.
Sure. So running the mentorship program on my own, for me, this was not only reading through applications, but also doing the interviewing of the mentors, going through the information and applications that I received for the mentees and kind of collating that information and putting it together, and then doing the matching of the students on my own based on what I'm reading. That honestly takes a lot of time to do. And it's also, since it's only me, one person running the program at the time, actually each time that I was doing it, it's very hard to scale. There's no way I could, there was a certain number of students that I always kept every year and I wasn't able to scale because I'm the only one that's doing all this work. So, having this program in place gives you the ability to scale the program to be able to accept more students. Again, it certainly creates retention and sense of belonging amongst our students. So again, makes it a little bit easier with streamlining that process. It also gives us the ability to design and implement this high impact mentorship program. It also gives me the opportunity to provide our mentors with more in terms of professional development on my side, because I don't have to wear so many hats and doing all the other leg work. which you saw the pictures of, that actually had a peer mentorship training this past weekend. And then again, using that data from the dashboard, and I keep the dashboard up every day, to be honest, because I can see all the engagement. You can see how many conversations are going on. You can see the reports, you can see the flags, and we'll talk about that later on. It just helps you again with collecting this data, and then you can take this data and use it to get grant funding and things of that nature. Just got to make sure that you're telling the story, using the data to tell the story. So we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, I wanted to jump to that because you were talking about the challenges of running a mentorship program, but it's always great to hear student voice. And so we have approved from this student to share this with everybody today about her experience in the mentorship program.
Hi, my name is Erica, and I am part of the first generation college student mentorship program here at Georgia Institute of Technology. And I wanted to share a little bit about my experience as a mentee. I met with my mentor for the first time about a month ago, and even though we're not in the same major, he has already made a really huge impact on me. I went to our first meeting not really knowing what to expect from it, and we talked, and I just gave him like my story, and he shared his story. And we decided that the goal of our meetings would be to help me build my resume, learn how to talk about myself in like an elevator pitch style, and try and get an internship by the end of this school year for next summer. He has given me so many tips for building my resume. He's gone through and edited it. He's constantly encouraging me in all of the things that I find, all of the opportunities that I stumble across. He's very good at encouraging me to get involved and teaching me what to put on the resume that is going to work for what it is that I want to do. He also has given me tips about how to apply to internships, the best time to apply to internships, the best ways to apply to internships, tips and tricks. And he's also helped me figure out my plans for undergrad and grad school, and if I plan to do a joint degree, or if I plan to wait and get a master's later, or if I even want to do a master's. And we talk about all of these things, and he's always been super great, super warm and welcoming. And it's just been a really incredible experience. And I feel very lucky to have him helping me through this, because college is a very confusing place to be. It's all very new to me. And so it's nice to have somebody that I know I can talk to and ask questions if needed. And I hope that this mentorship program can bring something to you all, because I can only imagine how wonderful it would be to get to be a mentor in the future. And I know that I would love to be a mentor in the future, because I want to have an impact on somebody like the way that my mentor has had an impact on me. Yeah. Bye. Hi.
Hold on one second. I love hearing from students. One of the things that we do as we work with partners is collect all kinds of quotes, both in video and written form, from mentors and mentees about the impact of the program on them. And as you can see from this student, her mentor helped her with resumes, internships, tips and tricks, someone to talk to, navigating the space. It really depends on the needs of the mentee, what the mentor does to support. So we're going to dig now into why this is a successful mentorship program, as well as a little bit about Mentor Collective and how we support successful mentorship programs. And we do that through 6 main essentials. Everything is research backed at Mentor Collective. We have a research arm that ensures best practices. And we, as you can see, we have 6 main essentials: program design, recruiting, training, matching, engagement support, and ultimately assessment. We're going to go through these things and see what they look like at Georgia Tech, as well as share some of the outcomes. So, how do we play into student success? Well, the first is that we want to support if there's an institutional challenge around retention and sense of belonging. We have seen that mentored students are actually retained and have a higher sense of belonging than non-mentored students. We've actually seen an increase when we looked at a first-year experience retention analysis across Mentor Collective programs. Our team found a 5.67% improvement in retention and an over 8% improvement in affirmative responses to sense of belonging. We also want to be scalable. As we heard Dr. Troy say, she really ran these programs. I'm sure they were beautiful, but they weren't scalable to hundreds, if not thousands of incoming first-gen students. So what we do is we work on a program design that provides a best match possible and helps with that matching and logistical support so that Dr. Troy can focus on intervention for students, not logistics. We also have in the matching survey a very easy way to take it. We'll talk about matching more, but there's over 80 criteria on which we match, ensuring that the mentee and the mentor are the best possible match. Also, she talked about it's just her, it's just Dr. Troy. And before our partnership, there wasn't the capacity to do this at scale. We actually provide a team of folks. I'm one of those team members, and usually it takes about 1 to 2 hours a month of administrative support to run the program. And it could be more if, like, you're Dr. Troy and you're creating additional programs to support, but ultimately the dashboard time and interventions on flags, which we will talk about, is really the bulk of the time that it takes administrators. All those other logistics are handled by Mentor Collective. And data. A lot of times programs, we say, this program is really great. And you might have another administrator or a senior person ask, how do you know? Well, we're able to show data through what we have as a program intelligence dashboard that you're able to filter by population and engagement, and you're able to export and see those results. For example, Dr. Troy can look and identify by gender, how many students are having 3+ conversations, which is one of our markers for retention. And we could determine, are men having more conversations than women, or vice versa, and how can we intervene? Again, giving data and insights to the institution, and in this case, Georgia Tech, to make decisions around programming and how to spend important dollars as well. So our program design for the first gen peer mentorship program is across these 5 criteria. And this chart looks different for every one of our programs as we determine how we design the program. We look at population, when we're intervening with this mentorship program, what our outcomes are, who our mentors are, and key match criteria. As you can see here, we have quite a pathway for this program. And I want to call your attention to key match criteria, and that middle one in particular, life experiences. When we are working with students, we want to make sure that the match is a relevant match. And part of that is sharing a mentorship with someone who has similar life experiences. Are you working a job during college? Were you the first, in this case, first to go to college in your family? Are you a parent? Have you experienced a death in the family or a chronic illness? There are so many different life experiences on which students can be matched with other students, so that when that match is made, it feels incredibly relevant. You also heard the students say that they were not matched with an academic major. We currently made the decision to match across academic major to ensure that we were really focusing on that sense of belonging and overall experience and affinity to Georgia Tech versus a specific academic major, although that can look very different. Anything to add, Dr. Troy, to how we designed your program?
I'm sorry, no, I don't have anything additional to add, just that in addition to under the population, there is talk about adding transfer students to that population as well. It's great to actually be able, it's great to be actually able to pick out what intervention and targeted outcome points that you want to make sure that you reach when you are creating your program.
Absolutely. And transfers are another. We run many programs specifically for transfer students, and the pathway may look different. So every institution we work with, we look at what are your goals, who's your population, and what are your key match criteria, and what are your outcomes, and then design the program. Perfect. Recruiting. So a lot of people, I'm going to throw this question up here because yes, we're talking about volunteer mentors. These are not paid mentorships. And I'd love for you to speak to Dr. Troy. Do your students want to volunteer to be mentors? What are you hearing from them?
As the young lady said in the video, that she can't wait until she becomes a mentor because that's something that she wants to do. So the answer is yes. We do have students that want to volunteer to be mentors. And in all honesty, in some of my past programs, I've actually paid mentors, and the retention rate amongst the mentors that were actually paid was not that high. All my students currently now are volunteer, and actually more mentors have registered this year to volunteer than last year. Last year I had 54 mentors. This year I have 77 and counting. And they are all so excited to become mentors. A lot of conversation about, I wish this was in place when I started Georgia Tech, is going around, and I have so much knowledge to impart and so many things to tell. That's generally the conversation that I'm getting with the mentors as they sign up or they ask me about it. So yes, a lot of enthusiasm to be volunteers and not be paid. They just want to do this, and helping their fellow first-gen students as they transition in.
Absolutely. And we also provide a LinkedIn certification for those who are wondering, is there any incentive? There's lots of altruistic incentive and giving back that we see, but we also provide a LinkedIn certification and language that can go on a resume for these near peer mentors as well. And just to hear from a few of our mentors, we know that they want to help build community. They want to help alleviate overwhelming feelings from being a new student and build their communication and leadership skills. So all of these are just a drop in the bucket of the quotes that we have. But when mentors sign up for a program, they let us know why, either in video form or written form. And we hear these things a lot. I want to help build community, help others through their overwhelming first year, and build communication and leadership skills. And we believe that mentorship really does support that for mentors. And speaking of one of your mentors, I'd love for you to talk about John a little bit, Dr. Troy.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually heard more about John's story during our first generation recognition ceremony, and I was in total awe. And so we actually did an article on John. And so his wife actually shared John's story with the audience. So she talked about, as far as John, how overly resilient John is. John grew up in a family where he had to actually work on a farm. He got into a little bit of trouble, had to be raised by his grandmother later on. And John, he traveled to a number of countries, which I'm so jealous of, and did volunteer work before he even entered into Georgia Tech. And he's actually a transfer student, first generation. He transferred from Georgia State into Georgia Tech. And he overcame so many obstacles, but he decided to put his work into doing work globally and volunteering, and did such a great job at Georgia Tech. And now John works at Microsoft. So when he graduated, he was heading to Microsoft. But he loved being a mentor, always had that smile on his face that you see in that picture. John always had that smile.
And what's so great is I think this is just one example, but each mentor comes with their own story of successes and learnings, and all of that is relevant to a new student, right? All of their learnings and the fact that they were also a first generation student makes a difference. Thank you for sharing. I do want to talk about training very quickly. We have training that is based in Bloom's taxonomy for all the educators out there, ensuring that we have a lesson plan structure that works for adult learners, looks at skill development, learning about university resources, establishing healthy boundaries, right? Mentors need to have boundaries with their mentees, and program expectations. All mentors must get a 75% or higher on this on-demand training in order to be matched with a mentee. And then they get their certification, which can be posted on LinkedIn. The other thing is we have ongoing support in the form of discussion guides. These can be created or uploaded from the university or from the 40 plus that we already have, things from having difficult conversations to effective interviews. These are lesson plans of sorts that mentors can do with their mentee. Maybe they'll both watch a TED Talk together and then have a series of questions they discuss. So again, providing support to those mentors along the way. And Dr. Troy, now that you have more time and you're not worried about the logistics of the program, you also have done your own series of peer mentor trainings on resiliency, right?
Yes, actually, I did one over the weekend. We did a resilience training as well as a welcome lunch. So that way we could not only impart this professional development piece, but to also get the mentors together so they could meet, network with each other, share some tips, share things that they're doing with their mentees, resources that maybe their mentees should know, and actually put names with faces, and for me to put names with faces. So now they know who they're getting all their lovely emails from. So it was a great time.
Great. And for those of you who are on this call who may already be partners, Dr. Troy is a great person to reach out to for thinking about going above and beyond what the Mentor Collective does in terms of training as well. Matching. Matching is so critical. And so we have a matching algorithm that our engineering team has designed with human oversight. So we actually tested to see whether humans or this matching algorithm could come up with the best possible, most satisfied and effective matches. And we found that we were able to remove some human biases by using the computer algorithm. However, not every match will be perfect the first time, and we are able to rematch, but that happens in very few of the situations. The matching survey is configurable to the needs and interests of your university, including putting your specific majors, for example, adding specific life experiences that may be relevant to your students. And we use this matching survey to create these strong, relevant matches that go for the course of the school year. Anything you want to say about matching, Dr. Troy, and how you've seen it work?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to say that in terms of the way that I used to do the matching when I was running the program on my own, the only thing I really focused on were the majors, and also maybe the demographic information, or if there was a similar interest. Those were some of the things I would match based on, but Mentor Collective has, like you mentioned, a lot of different characteristics for students to actually pick to kind of zero more in on who they would like to be matched with.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to go this alone. So just know that if you are a partner with Mentor Collective, like Dr. Troy is, you get a team. So you have someone who's a me. Judith is currently working with Dr. Troy and may be with us today in the chat, and Belle. And all of us work together to ensure operationally and efficacy-wise, we are running the best program possible so that Dr. Troy on her own over there can use that data to move forward the goals that she has. And again, not worry too much about logistics. We also ensure engagement support by keeping an eye on the flags, which we're going to talk about, and also nudging our mentors to log conversations so that we can find out what are the main topics of conversation that are happening. So if there's resources that Georgia Tech needs to send out, they know who to send those out to and on what topics. How has it been working with your team, Dr. Troy? I know I'm setting you up considering I'm part of your team.
You all are fantastic.
Why, thank you. No, the feeling is mutual. And one of the things that I found, just as an aside at Mentor Collective, is that we are true partners. Yes, we are a company that works with partners. We are an organization that works with partners, but we truly are collaborative in nature, and their success is our success. And then finally, assessment. let's dig into, this is assessing and addressing student needs. And so what kinds of assessment do we have? And does Mentor Collective have on whole? And do we have as it relates to Georgia Tech's Peer Jackets program? Last year, we had 118 students out of the approximately 400 or so first-gen students with about an hour or two of staff time per month involved in this program. This year, this program is almost doubled in size, and hopefully will still only be 1 to 2 hours of staff time per month for you, Dr. Troy, as we work to match all of the interested students. They heard about it last year, and they are very involved this year. We also look at high engagement. We're able to track those with 3+ conversations. And last year, we had approximately 61% of folks have 3+ conversations. Why is that important? Our research has shown that 3+ conversations has a huge impact on the retention of individuals in the mentored cohort, specifically 11.8% across our meta-analysis that we did. The 5% was for those who only had 1 reported conversation. So clearly mentorship and being connected to a peer in this way for a first-year student is really important to them persisting. And finally, we had over 1,000 logged conversations. So those are mentors going in and saying, we talked about academics, staying balanced, clubs. We don't know specifically the topics. I'm sorry, we do know the topics. We don't know the content. And there were almost 3,400 text messages exchanged. We actually are able to connect mentees and mentors on an SMS relay line so that they don't have each other's personal information unless they choose to share it, but they are able to connect via text message while they figure out if they're meeting in person or Zoom or FaceTime or just using the text message as a way to have conversations. All of this, as Dr. Troy noted, is in the dashboard. Because of proprietary information and the fact that there is student data, I cannot show you their dashboard. However, if you're really interested in seeing what the program intelligence chart and the dashboard has, you can let us know that you're interested, and we have a demo that we can share with you to really show you all of the insights and data that's available there and what you can do with it.
Oh, Vanessa, before you leave from there, can
Yes.
I share like some of our numbers really quick for
Share them.
this year? And like
Yes.
Vanessa had mentioned, that we've almost doubled. So this year, we're actually at 209 students that have completed matching surveys to be matched with the mentor. And we're in the month of August, which is like the first month that we have connected our mentors and mentees together, was this month. And I wrote down the numbers from my dashboard. So right now we're at 2,350 peer-to-peer text messages, where you see 3,300 over here just for the semester. We're already at 2,350 for the month of August, and 350 log conversations have already been entered into the system as well. And we'll talk about flags later, but 28 flags have already been issued. So again, that intervention piece.
Yes. And let's get to that. I do want to just note the research that we have behind here, which shows a significant relationship. Why are we talking about number of conversations? It's because it's tied to our retention metrics and our sense of belonging metrics. So when we analyze data across partnerships in these meta-analyses, we look at sense of belonging, we look at retention, and we found that with 3+ conversations, that's really where the impact is happening. And that's 3+ reported conversations, right? We know that not every conversation is being reported, and generally there is an under-report. But with this year, if you were saying, Dr. Troy, there's already almost 350 conversations logged in the first month, you know there's a lot of chatter happening and good information being relayed that's going to support the experience and sense of belonging for those students.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about flags. This chart is from your dashboard from last year on the right. Mm-hmm. Flags are when we ask mentors to raise their hand if their mentee needs help with something that they are not qualified to give. They are not academic advisors. They are not mental health counselors.
Right.
And so we say to them in training, if any of these topics come up, please flag these for the university. And there's lots of ways we set these up. And Dr. Troy, I'm going to share the ways that we set up the flagging system. And then I'd love you to talk about what the flags, how you triage flags, how they support what you're doing with students. So we have multiple ways in which we can do flags. In Dr. Troy's case, she's a central administrator. So all flags go to her, and then she makes sure to reach out, and she'll talk about this to the mentee to provide the resource needed. We also have resource specific flags. So if somebody flags a financial aid concern, it can go to the financial aid office on your campus, right? Directly to them. And then we also have it so that individual students can get, if a mentor flags for me, let's say Vanessa, this flag goes to my advisor, right? And so there's lots of ways that our university partners utilize flags. But Dr. Troy, can you talk about the importance of flags and kind of your process for triaging and working with them?
Absolutely. So for me, flags, it's very important in terms of intervention and making sure that we get our students the resources that they need. For me, if I don't have the answer to something, then I have contacts in other departments. I'm going to connect my students with the contacts in another department, like, for example, financial aid, because we do get a lot of financial concerns as flags. And so depending on what that flag is about, of course, it's an immediate priority flag, then I'm reaching out immediately to the student to see what's going on and how can I be of assistance. There was actually a flag last year for a student that was was facing homelessness and was going to be housing insecure. And so making sure that I connect them with our resources in terms of getting them some housing on campus, some short-term housing, some food, some financial assistance in place is very key. We also have non-priority flags where maybe it's just a student saying, well, I had a student that asked me about academic struggles. I had a student ask me about switching majors, and I told them to do this. If I see that the mentor has already given them the proper resource or given them some tips, depending on what they say in their report, then that's not actionable to me. And that's a great thing too, because you can divide the flags and they're either actionable, non-actionable, pending, or immediate. And so you can kind of put your categories in, put your notes in about your flags and what you did. And making sure that you follow up so you can either act on the flags or kill them out or say, well, it sounds like my mentor handled this. If my mentor has not put in enough information for me in terms of the flags, then I'm going to reach out to that mentor to get more information before I reach out to that mentee. So that's how I triage my flags.
Excellent. And I did just see a quick question in the chat around integration into other systems. We are able to integrate into some other student information systems or do single sign-on. And we have others who are able to just download, export, and upload these flags into other flagging and early alert systems. It's something we're working on. And should this be something that you are really particularly interested in on your campus, we can talk to you about what that looks like and find out the engineering specific answer for your particular system. All right. So what did we see in terms of sense of belonging? Our program showed an increase in sense of belonging from pre to post. We actually assess mentees and mentors before the program starts, in the middle of the program, and at the end, specifically on sense of belonging and self-efficacy. And where we saw the biggest increase this year was in mentor sense of belonging. So we always need to remember that mentors have a critical component in this, and it's impacting them as well. And so as we move forward, Dr. Troy, you see these numbers. Are there ways that you can envision using these numbers to move forward some of your other agenda items?
Absolutely. And actually, I'll just go to the mentor sense of belonging, because actually, what made me do the training that I did this past year, and I have to be honest. So last year, I did not do a training my own training for the mentors. I just relied on the training that Mentor Collective did. But last year at the end, when it came to that post assessment for the mentors, one of the mentors mentioned that they wish they would have been able to meet other mentors or to, have dialogue more with me and get to know me a little more. And so I used that information to say, okay, this year I'm going to make sure I engage the mentors more and get them together. And so that was one of the things that I did. And, again, like I said, it's great to have them know exactly who Dr. Troy is when they're getting my messages. And now I have them stopping by my office. I mean, we just had this program over the weekend. I have them stopping by my office because they know who I am and they want to know me more. Right. So creating that sense of belonging and letting them know that, hey, if you need any resources or if there's things you want to ask me or things that you want to get connected to on campus, you can stop by my office and we can talk or just connect them with other opportunities that they're interested in. So yeah, definitely.
Thank
That
you.
was definitely helpful.
And this is really important to me as an educator. Do the mentees and mentors enjoy the experience? Is it efficacious? Are they satisfied? We ask them this multiple times throughout the mentorship. And so these numbers shift and change over time. And our team is always watching. So if there is somebody who ranks a 4 or below, we'll actually reach out and see to how to improve their experience. And so we're always looking for improvement. But last year's cohort was very satisfied, as you can see, with this program. And I'm curious, Dr. Troy, did you hear from any students, last year or this year who said, this is something I really want to continue?
Yeah, actually I did. I heard from students who actually still wanted to be mentees.
Yeah, I bet.
Or, like, no. You need to switch.
Yes.
I need you to be a mentor now.
Yep.
So you can start imparting your advice on
Wonderful.
our incoming students.
The other thing is, I know Dr. Troy will hear from students, but on the dashboard, you can actually sort by quotes as well and pull out reasons and things that you're hearing from students to utilize to show the efficacy of your program outside of that quantitative data as well. And we just talked about how you're going to use this data in the future, right? You use the data. I will say there's a picture of us presenting at NASPA, which was really exciting. And so we are presenting on this data. I think the other thing we're going to do with it is look at benchmarking our first year, comparing it to our second year, looking at retention within the program, and then utilizing these to make a case to continue our partnership, right? And to expand programming for first-gen students.
For me, let me just say real quick,
yes.
I always say that assessment equals money.
Yes.
I'm big on trying to get grants and all that good stuff. So I like to use the data that we have, that we get from this program in terms of putting together a proposal for, grants and things of that nature. So I love assessment.
Yes.
And I love data.
And just so everyone has this, take a screenshot, take a picture, write it down, follow Dr. Troy. She is a consultant in this space as well, really working with first-gen students and an expert, and is in all of these places. This presentation will be sent out to everyone who signed up to attend and to everybody who is here, so you will have it. But I'm going to give you about 3 more seconds to capture this and make sure to follow the great work that's happening at Georgia Tech.
Yes, and please follow me on social media or send me a LinkedIn invite. I'll be happy to connect with you. You can email me if you have any questions. You can contact me via contact at charmainetroy.com for any consulting inquiries, or if you need a speaker for your upcoming First Generation College Celebration Day, any of those things. I'm happy to connect.
And we're going to do questions in just a second. However, we know that you're here, you're interested in learning about mentorship. If you are interested in learning about mentorship, you're going to see a yes, please learn about Mentor Collective, or a not at this time. Just take a moment and click that. And if you put yes, someone will reach out to you and we'll set up a time to have a conversation about your goals for first generation students, your goals at your campus, and what Mentor Collective can and does do. So we'll give that a second here. Perfect. Now we have approximately 4 minutes, which is not a lot of time for questions. However, let me look here. If we have any questions in the chat briefly. I see lots of thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What was the timeline for launching the program? And what do you attribute the increase this year over last year in student engagement in the program?
So the timeline for launching the program, actually I started Georgia Tech in April 2021, and we were already, like I said, you and Brent were already in the works as far as Mentor Collective talking about doing work with Mentor Collective. And so then I was able, since it was right at the beginning of the talks, I was able to jump in and give my feedback as well. And we were able to kind of get things going for a launch in the fall of 2021. So I would probably say it was from like April until we started doing the recruitment in early August of 2021, as far as the timeline.
And it takes us, just for like a new partner institution, about 4 to 6 weeks to get a program up and running, generally. So on our end, if that was the question, takes us about 4 to 6 weeks. We really like to get ahead and do all the planning as possible, although we can do it in a shorter time if necessary. And what do you attribute the fact that the program has doubled in size?
Ooh. I would say the great work of our mentors. I'm certainly not going to take all the credit.
Yep.
I would say the great work of our mentors and, the word getting out and a lot of promotion. When I do the webinars for incoming students or for our prospective students, when I go into Preview Georgia Tech for students that are interested in Georgia Tech, I'm always promoting our First Gen Jackets peer mentoring program, as well as on social media. So, and of course the great work that our mentors are doing, I'm sure that is going around campus. So I would attribute the increase to that.
Awesome. And one last question. How have you thought about, if we haven't done this yet, in thanking mentors?
Well, I mean, like, for example, this year, I thanked them up front with the welcome lunch. So that's one way I thank mentors. We also did a certificate last year. I would like to see another thank you luncheon and some more activities throughout the semester and at the end of the year, as far as doing something as far as a thank you for our mentors and having a dinner. So those are some ways, but also, I give them opportunities to come to our events, and I give swag and all that other good stuff too. Awesome. During the year.
And last question I can actually answer. If a mentee changes majors, do they get a new mentor that fits their academic goals better? Ultimately, if the mentee is unsatisfied with what the mentor is able to provide them, we can rematch that mentor. So sometimes if a student changes majors and wants someone within their major, we're able to accommodate that. So it always comes down to what is best for the mentee, what the mentee needs, and what their goals are. And if those goals change, we can accommodate a mentor change if needed, as well.
Oh, and finally, in the chat, mentors are not paid. Our mentors are not paid.
Yes, these mentors are not paid in this program, and we can talk more about how we recruit mentors too if you have more questions. Thank you. Just visit mentorcollective.org if you have any other questions. I'm also just Vanessa at Mentor Collective if you have questions for me. It has been our pleasure today to welcome you into this space during hopefully your lunch or early morning, depending on where you were. Thank you so much, Dr. Troy, for your partnership and your work.
Thank you so much for having me. As always, I love working with Mentor Collective. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. The feeling is mutual. Have a great day, everyone. Go off and change student lives.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.